Tango 1 at the top, we are at Papa Cuckoo. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action, find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're ruining that with the Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
Welcome to the Tango 1 podcast. I'm Tony Smith, your host. I'm a retired cop and SWAT team leader, currently the owner of the Garage Gym and Tango 1 Solutions in Amherstburg, Ontario. Today, I'm joined by my good friend, a guy I haven't seen in a long time. I have to break out his intro to actually run down the accolades. I got Jamie Adjetey Nelson here with me today, and Jamie is something else, man. He is a decathlete. He's a national medalist, a francophone game medalist, world ranked. He was a Canadian champion and a Commonwealth champion. He was one of the top 4 placements of all time, at least as a few years ago, for Canadians in the decathlon. And he's an ambassador for athletes in general, and he's now a police officer, which is where we finally officially met, even though I got my ass kicked in a couple of races by you. And most importantly, though, he's a father and a husband. So in today's episode, I want to talk about grit, coaching, some fun, and then about appreciating the journey that you've been on. And then we'll get into maybe a little bit about racism and some more harder, stronger topics too, if we have the opportunity. So let's get rolling, man. So Rick, let's just start right away. Let's start on the track. Let's start start with your passion.
Well, how did it start? Started with my dad. We were kids, and we, take us for walks and stuff like that. And we'd be coming around after a long walk, speeding up, getting to the house, and we'd see the house, and it was an all-out sprint. So, he was working me, when I was 6, 7, and 8, taking it to me. Finally, I remember I was like 13 years old, and like we came around the corner, and stride opened up, and I opened up the gap on him, and he looked at me, and he was like, all right, that's it. And that's when I knew. I was like, okay, I like this running, because he told me, they call him the Flash. My dad's from Ghana. So when he was a kid,
he tells you they call him.
Exactly.
If you met Jamie's dad, you know what I'm going with that joke.
But yeah, so
he's a character to say the least.
Oh, he's a clown. So he's telling all the story. So finally, I beat the Flash. And I was like, you're feeling nice, right? So that's where the track started, the love. And then I went to St. Joe's, man. St. Joe's had this amazing track team. I went to school with Trevor Snyder, and we had a long history with Brad Snyder, like the best track team in Ontario. Like Little Windsor, no one thinks about it, right? So, my coach took me to Austin my first year. Wasn't really that good, but he was like, you need this, see what's going on. Because I was like a young, scrappy grade 9 kid, and you just show up to track, and he's like, in practice today. But he's like, you'll see what's happening. And I saw like how they were competing at Austin, and like I loved it. The competition, people screaming, and like in Toronto, going back and forth, it's trash talk, and I was like, okay, this is me. I want to be here. So after that, I was on point, man. I go to practice, I train. I didn't have a car, and what did I do? I used to take the bus from Forest Glade to the University of Windsor. We used to train in Bell River. So I live in Forest Glade, so I went to the University of Windsor, caught a ride from the University of Windsor to drive back out to Bell River. And then one day someone's like, where do you live, man? I was like, Forest Glade. They're like, yo, we can pick you up.
How old are you, Jane?
Me? 36, man.
36. So why would I remember you running? I mean, St. Joe's had a killer track team for a while, but I think maybe I was working off duty as a cop at one of the track meets, and that's why I remember you run. Do you remember somebody getting hit with a javelin?
You were there?
I was working off duty, me and Snyder.
Was that Kennedy Relays?
Yeah, yes. Do you remember this?
Yes.
This is why, because I'm like, why do I think I've run against, but I did run it. But I ran against you guys had some great runners for a long time. And I remember watching Snyder throw in the pits, and they're like, number one throw in all of the world or something.
Yeah.
And there was this Jeff something and
Jeff Schleifer.
right. I think he passed away, right?
Yeah, yeah, he got in a car accident. You know, young and fearless, but yeah, my sister actually did. And he was a St. Joe's legend, man. Also, record.
You guys had a good track thing going for a long time, man. Yeah, so sorry to cut you up there. I was just trying to just piece all that together. I remember watching this javelin soar through the air.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, what a great throw. Oh my God, it just hit somebody. Like you're working as a cop, I'm just doing security and track, and I'm not doing anything but like walking around talking to people, my old coaches and stuff. And then this happened. It was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I remember that the kid was running away from the javelin. Like he's like, oh, the jack's coming. He's running, and we're like, oh.
Yeah, right in the hand. I was like, oh my God. Anyway, so then you end up, so you're running with Legion, and then you end up with the Lancers. And I just watched your documentary. I hadn't seen it in years. I watched it when I first started working with you. And what a crazy, crazy story. So hard to believe, like knowing what I know about you now, that you weren't like that you were a dark horse really as an athlete, like as a track star. Nobody really saw you as the potential that you really hammered out. So was that like something you used as motivation or something that you used, you know, or did you even care at all? It was just all about, you know, what you're going to do and forget what everybody else does.
You know, you get that small town mentality, you know, where you go places and like, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Windsor. And they're like, and they kind of brush you off. And I like that. I was like, oh, you poked the wrong bear. So, you know, being at Windsor, everyone's like, oh, what's in Windsor? I go to Toronto, like Windsor. So that just said, okay, all right, you think us little guys are here or nothing. So when I had that, like I was all in. I'm at my coaches, I'm like, hey, how do I get better? Like I'm in there, I'm like, what do I need to do? And they're just like, what's this kid? And once they saw that I was like willing to learn about the event and take it to the next level with like training, like they'd be like, do this. I'd come back and do it. And then I would be like, I also looked up this, and they're like, oh, okay, you're serious about it. And after that, it just skyrocketed, man. Like I was all about the process. The process was always the best thing because I could just keep working it, and learning it. And I always had the natural idea to compete. Like it was just natural to me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to compete. I'm as good as you. Like I'm stepping on the track. I'm not afraid of you. They're like, yo, that's a record holder. I was like, why can't I be the record holder? Like you guys don't know what I'm doing down here. Like I'm banging every day. I'm learning every day. Like I'm the last one to leave the track and the first one there. Like you really start, you know, those Rudy stories you hear about, like first one there, last one to leave. Like I believed that, and then I just kept getting results after results, and it was just like the quality of work I was getting. And then I was like bringing other people in. I was like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, this is what we're doing out here in Windsor. And they're like, and I didn't talk about the end result. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And once they saw what we were doing, they're like, get down with that. And it just lifted the level of my training group.
And the Lancers became an absolute track and field powerhouse during your time there, and a little bit before and a little bit. They were kind of on the rise before you got there, and then they held on to that quite after a little while after you left too, right?
Yeah,
they really put Windsor on the map. University of Windsor.
Oh, they did. We were the first ones to say you got to go where the competition is. You know how it is. And that was the States, so you know we love Canada and everything, but we were down in Notre Dame. We were in at Michigan, we're in California, we're in Hawaii, and we're competing against the best. And when we used to come back to Windsor or to Ontario, they're like, man, why are you guys so hyped up? It's like, because we went down to the States and we're competing with the NCAA. They say they're the best, and we're like, we'll toe the line with them any day.
So let's paint the picture a little bit for people who might not be so familiar with track. Not that I'm crazy familiar. Here's a funny story for you, track story. So I was a 400-meter runner, right?
Okay.
The worst. I know, as you look at my statue, this is why it's even more funny, Jay, because you're going to love this. So I made awesome, believe it or not. I made awesome. So I was pretty good, man. I think I ran a 52. That's not too shabby for a 5'8" white guy, right?
A lot of steps.
So that's a lot of steps for me, right? Just legs, these thick legs. I'm not built for this. I thought I was a sprinter, but I wasn't a good enough sprinter. I thought it was long distance, but I wasn't good enough long distance. The coach was like, hey, 400 meters. Remember Boots?
Yes.
Paul Boots?
Booter,
yeah.
Yeah.
So he was my track coach. So he puts me in that. So we make OFSA. And OFSA is being held at Essex High. And it was a brand new track. It was like the place to be, the kick-ass place to be. My whole family comes. Well, I step on the track. I know I'm the only white guy in the heat, right? Not that that really matters that much, but like I'm literally like it's like you standing next to me. Like everybody's 6'3" Jack, and I'm like 5'9", and I was scrawny back then. And I'm looking around like, oh man, I don't know if I'm like. So anyways, I run my ass off. I PR, and I come in last place in the heat. And I remember my family's like, oh, you just didn't have your best, today. And I'm like, no, I had my best. I just got demolished. But like it was insane the difference in like what you see with the competition. Just like when you go from ESSA or whatever it was called back then, ESSA to SWASA, and then on, it was like, holy bro, these are fast human beings and we're like machines. So where I was going with that is training for the 400 meter, all the sports and all the fitness things that I've done now, training for the 400 meter race was perhaps the worst experience. And you decide that you're going to run the decathlon, right? Which is 10 events.
10 events.
So now you're practicing. That's what I was talking about my wife Danny before you got here. It's like, how insane is training for 10 different events? Like, what does a day look like training for 10 events? Like, how many are you hitting in a day?
It's a weird formula because you're trying to hit at least 3 events a day. You're trying to hit a jump, a throw, and you got to run. Like everything involves running. So
because there's an all the way from 100 to 1500, correct?
Yeah. So 100 long jump, shot put, high jump,
insane.
400 meters. That's the first day. So you end the day with the 400 meters. So you know how that feels after. Everyone's lying on the track rolling around. Get up the next morning, 110 meter hurdles, discus, pole vault, javelin, and you're like, oh, it doesn't sound bad. And they're like, hey, how about you run a 1500 meters? So that's 2 days. Take the points from each one, whoever's the highest at the end. You're the best athlete in the world. If you're a decathlete and you win the world championship of the Olympics, they say you are the greatest athlete in the world because you get all disciplines. Speed, power, and distance. So
how does this come to be where you decide to go from, because I would assume you were a sprinter. When I watched you in high school, you were a sprinter, right?
Yeah, 400 meters.
400 meters.
Yeah, so I feel your pain, baby.
Well, I think you ran a few more than I did.
Actually, if I would have saw you at OFSA, and usually it's when you go to OFSA, it's like 7 black guys and 1 white guy, and you're like, I'm taking my money on that little white guy.
There was a guy named Emerson Jones or something, man, from Amherst.
Yeah.
He crushed it. He was a little white guy too. And I remember him flying on the track. Yeah, but man, like.
Yeah, that's but so I started there. So a day looks like you get up in the morning and it's like, all right, it's early, so it's like we're gonna do a jump. So I would go high jump and have a long jump, and then after I might have to throw down a run, like a speed run. Then I would come back at lunch and I would be like, all right, I got to do another throw. So I'd be throwing. And then it's like, all right, end of the day's coming. They're like, we're going to do a hard run. So you're going to go up there and you're just going to do like a 400 meter workout, right? And then after you're going to go home, chill for a bit. And it's like, I got to hit the weight room, whether it's, some plyos, some weights, some cleans or something like that. And then it's like, all right, rest up. Do that again the next day. And on your rest day, what you think is a rest day, you're just going through the reps. You're like, walking stuff, and it's all mental. Like you're just always doing reps mentally, and then you're doing it physically. And then you have to come back 2 days later and do the same thing again with 3 other events. And the weekend comes, and you're like, oh, I get the weekend off. It's like, no, all right, we're just gonna take it, and like you gotta work some 1500 meter stuff. But throwing's not too bad. So you're gonna do 2 throws in order to get you on the track again. I mean, I couldn't get enough food in my body sometimes.
I can't imagine what the calorie intake must have been.
Everyone talks about Michael Phelps and he was eating this many calories a day. Similar thing. Like I couldn't get enough food. Like I was always eating. Like right now, like I feel good. I'm like 225 pounds. Feel good. I competed at 189 pounds.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And to give people an idea, like, so Jamie, how tall are you?
I'm 6'3".
6'3". So I'm 5'9", and I'm 194 pounds. So you're 6'3", and you're competing at 189. That is insane, and training like an animal. So now you've put in all of this training, all this hard work, and kind of become out of nowhere, from what I mean, from the videos I was watching today, nobody really knew who you were in the decathlon world, and you just come in and win the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah. Oh. And it was funny though, because it was like, who is this kid? Like I come there and my personality is like, hey, I show up to the track, I'm shaking hands. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? And people are like, who's this guy? And but they were just like, what's going on? And I was like, it's time. Like you see me, some people get focused and they're serious. You see me at the start line, smiling, dancing, and they're just like, oh, what's going on here? Another one of these guys. And I just boom, dropped the hammer. And they were just like, okay, respect. And when you start getting results, people start talking to you and they're like, oh, how you doing? I'm like, yeah. And then, they accepted me into the fraternity. And even like my athletic body's like, where did you come from? I was like, been putting in the work. Like I knew what I was capable of. Like my mind was there. It's like, you can be one of the best in the world. My coaches were like, we believe it. So we put our head down and we just worked. We kept learning and we just kept working.
That's crazy, man. So the Commonwealth Games, I remember when I was younger, and probably even when you were running, before on-demand TV, before everybody had internet TV and you could watch whatever sport, whatever you wanted, like the Commonwealth Games were like on Channel 7. Like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Where did you run that at?
India.
In India?
That was in Delhi.
Man, you've got so many cool places too, man. I love talking to you because you always like, we'd be in a cruiser and you'd be like, oh, the time I went to India. Like, what the fuck, man, what? So anyway,
yeah, so
challenge in itself, probably, decathlon in India.
So before we went to India, they give us advisories on what's going on. So one of the advisories was like, okay, don't go in the stairwells. We've been finding cobras in the stairwell. What? And they're like, we're locking all the balconies down because these monkeys went up there and they threw like a worker off. I was like, what? We had this guy drove around with an orangutan on his bike to scare off the chimpanzees that were like attacking people. Like, so this is what you're going there to compete, and I'm worried about like, wow, like I'm trying to focus, and I'm like, what's going on? Cobras? Like, I'm garden snakes out here. But that in itself, and it was with the Humidex, it's 54 degrees.
Oh my God, Fahrenheit.
What?
I mean Celsius.
Celsius,
yeah, not there.
Yeah, I wish it was Fahrenheit. It was nasty. So, and the air was so dirty. India's a beautiful place, like the people, but like this pollution and everything. At the end of each day, you blow your nose, and it was just black soot, just the air quality. They were trying to clear it up for the game, so you had to deal with the elements when you were there. But thank God for my parents' genetics. I love the heat.
Yes.
So
I know that you don't love the cold. We'll get into that a little bit later. But
so it was a perfect setting for me. I got there and it was good to go. Like before I got there, I told everyone, I said, I'm going to win. And they're like, oh, shoot, man. You're like, you're the new guy. I was like, what? I'm not going here to settle. Like, I'm here. I might as well say I'm going to win. So, I went with that mentality down there. And the coaches were like, just relax. I was like, I didn't come here to relax. Everyone's always big about the learning curve and you got to earn your way there. I said, no, I'm here. I might as well step up and give it my all. And I got there, and from event one, I was like, let's go. I was like 100 meters, whatever. And decathlon is different, right? You don't have to win each event. You just have to place really high and whatever you throw.
Right, it's an overall score, correct?
Overall score. So, I was always in the mix. I didn't win a lot of events. Actually, at Commonwealth, I did really well. I won quite a few, but I was always in the mix. And I always said I wasn't trying to be okay at each event. I was trying to be the best. Like, I'm racing guys. I used to run races where I would lose by a second, but this guy ran 9 seconds in 100, and I ran 10 seconds. But I'm like, it's different. I'm moving fast, but I'm like, yeah, I can race that Olympian. Like, where's it? I went to Barbados, Pan Am Juniors, and racing against Usain Bolt. Best man in the world. But I was like, all right, I didn't think I could beat him, but I was like, he's gonna help me run faster.
That's a great way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're chasing somebody, you're that much faster, man.
Yeah. So
don't we know?
Yeah. A few foot chases. It's coming handy. I'll tell you on the road, foot chases.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. So you win the Commonwealth Games, and now it's like, now you're legitimately, you've got to be thinking Olympics, right? At this point in your life, it's 2012 is coming up. They're going to be in London, England, and you start to set the course. Take me through this, man.
Well, you become the man, and everyone wants to be a part of it, right? And I was young. I was just feeling good. People were feeling me. You know, you feeling yourself, people start feeling you, and your group gets a little bit bigger. So we had set a plan, right? And we put it down like, this is how we're going to do it. And they're like, oh, we're going to help you. That was our athletic body, like Athletics Canada. And they're like, okay, you know, they start coming to my practices and they're like, fix this, fix that, fix this, fix that. And I kind of got away from what was working and like doing things in progression. So, you know, I bought it and I was feeling loved. I was feeling it. I was like, okay, you know, they're athletics, you know, they're Canada, they're trying to take care of me. And I started getting away from what the foundation I was already doing. And I started getting injured. So 2011, I went for 2010, I go from being 12th in the world. 2011, I'm injured from January to October that year, just because I started letting people kind of dictate what I needed to be doing in training. They're like, well, you shouldn't do this because this guy over in this world does it like this. This guy over in this country does this, so you should do it like them. And I started taking away the individual I had become and what I was doing. So like, I was injured. I had 2 surgeries that year. Like
On what?
On my ankle. I had to get my ankle scoped. I had PRP, like I tore my hamstring. So they're, taking your blood, spinning it, and using the platelets to try to, regenerate some tendons. And I'm doing all that, and I'm losing weeks and weeks of training. And you know what? At the end of the season, it was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to what I was doing. And then, the plan was still the same. Like my mind, like even when your body's broken, the mind is so powerful. So like I was seeing my sports psych, and it's like sometimes I think about track and what I'm doing, and I'm going through the reps in my head. She's like, perfect. You can't get the reps there. You could mentally get your head there. So when you come back, it's like you've done 1,000 reps, because you can do 1,000 reps in your head and your body's still fine. So mentally, I came back and I was like, let's go. I had like 6 months to throw down some solid training, but it's a fine balance, right? You can't do too much because you can hurt yourself. So, I was running, jumping, throwing, finding weeks to compete against, the best, because competition can take your training to a whole new level. And you know what it's like, you can train, but you give people goals and times to see where they're at, and sometimes you get something a little bit different. The body might do a little bit different. It's like now you're capable of doing that. There's no going back to what you used to do.
Right.
And so
once the mind relieves, man, it's crazy what can happen once you accomplish something.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you're like, and then 3 months later, you're like, how could I ever not do this?
Yeah,
it's crazy, right?
Yeah. So I did that, and we got to the Olympic trials. I had a wealth of knowledge in my event, felt ready. And I was like, let's go. And the guy I competed against, Damian Warner, amazing athlete, up and comer. We'd actually, I'm going to say we mentored him a bit. He had come to training camps with us, and he was a young guy. And, just from what I had learned those 3 years, I was like, you have a good group. I was like, for you to leave what's working for you to come to my group, I was like, this is not for you. Like, I actually told him not to come to the University of Windsor. I was like, you need to stay where you are and stay with good people, because in me personally, I can't take that away from you. Because if I do that, you're not going to get that result you need. So, he went back to London and he trained with his people, and we got to the national championships, and we were at it, going back and forth. And, we get down to it, like we're sprinting, he's faster. I'm a better thrower. I'm kind of a better jumper.
This is to qualify to represent Team Canada.
Team Canada.
At
the Olympics. And at that time, it was going to be one of us. It wasn't going to be both of us. So it was strict competition. That we both knew whoever won that day, life's going to be changed forever. You're going to be an Olympian. And we're really good friends. So we're there competing. And at no point was I saying, hey, I hope he makes a miss. I hope he doesn't do this. He would go and do something. I'm like, okay, bring it. It's my turn. I'm like, we're there screaming for each other, bring it, let's go. And everyone thinks track's like, oh, you track runners, you're not very tough. We're there screaming at each other, right, let's go, bring it. I want you to get a PR. So I can get a PR and beat you oh, what's this today? So we're going back and forth. The lead's changing. He wins the 100, I win the long jump. I'm like, we're going back and forth. Then we get to the last event, it's the 1500, and I'm leading, and I'm like, I got this. I was like, I just did some training. I was like, I'm good. I got this. He's gonna have to run like an Olympic record for the 1500 to take my spot, and I'm feeling good. So we get on the track, and he takes it out. I was like, I love it. Young Buck's going for it. I'm the vet guy. I'm gonna stay close to him. So we get through the first lap, and I'm like, ooh, feeling good, and all of a sudden I feel this twinge in my hamstring. It's like, oh, okay, just dial it back a little bit. Coming around 500 meters, all of a sudden, my right hamstring, boom, locks up, and I'm starting to like drag my leg. I'm like, I don't care what happens, I'm gonna drag this leg across the track. But in that essence, I'm now putting more stress on the other leg. Boom, other hamstring locks up, and boom, I fall off the track. That was it.
Olympic dreams gone.
Gone.
And what you're laying there, man. Like, I mean, I don't want to drive this knife in at all because I can see it. Even I got to grab it now. You take a sip, and you worked. I mean, I can't even imagine. I described my little high school track, 400 meter, how terrible that training is, and now you've trained for the decathlon for years and years. You've got to that point, and what are you thinking? The first, like, I don't know, what does that even feel like? It's just your heart's ripped out of your chest? Does it just feel not real? What goes through your head?
Why me? Like, why me? And it took a while. Like, I'm a puddle, and I look up and I see my best friend who I live with. He's standing over me, and he's in tears. My girlfriend hops over the fence and runs to me. Steph. Oh, shoot, my wife now. I'm going back. I'm taking it back.
No, I just wanted to make sure before I said Steph. That's why I was like, oh, like then I realized we're on camera. So I want to make sure it's Steph who's outside playing right now with my wife and kids.
And she's there. She's bawling her eyes out, and some really good people I met were there standing over me, and like I'm crying, and I look up and they're crying, and what goes to me through my head is like, I need to be strong for them right now. Like, I don't know why that came. I was like, I need to be strong for them, and I did start eating my emotions, but I was like, it's okay, and after a while, after an hour, I sit there and I was like, I just thought about the journey, like how I got here, people I met, just from giving my all. I got to meet my wife, like through track and field. My best friends, I got 2 degrees now. When before I was like really wasn't a school guy, but I was like, if you want to be a great track athlete, you got to go to school. So I elevated myself in different areas where I didn't think I was great, because I wanted to be great in something, and that's what it does. It elevates different areas of your life when you have a focus. And everything just came around and my community, like the people I met, like I couldn't believe it. And that came that day. I remember I sat down that night and I wrote something. It was like a letter to my community, and I'm going to be okay, and why I'm going to be okay. I just talked about the journey, the people I met, and everything, and I was able to pull it forward. Like that night, like 5 hours later, I was thinking about, what's next. You have an impact, on the community like that. That's what it is. Like, I'm not doing this by myself. Any road you take, it wasn't built by yourself. Someone built it for you, and you got to walk on it. So, I felt so appreciative of it.
That is just a wonderful way of looking at things, man. And hopefully lends some perspective to somebody listening to this who, might not have got the job they wanted, or I think, can you put yourself in Jamie's shoes, but still able to find the silver lining, still able to appreciate those around you. And sometimes, man, manning up for the people around you is the best thing. It's like medicine without even knowing you're doing it. It's just that innate thing inside of men, that pride thing where what, now I gotta take care of my family first. And that probably helped you to get through it. But all the years we've known each other, I mean, how long have you been a cop now?
7 years.
7 years. So we've known each other a little bit longer than that, but really got to know each other in your first year in policing.
Yeah.
We'll get into that, but you know we're going there. But I've never heard you speak negatively about your experiences in track, where I know a lot of people, you know, maybe you strike out, or maybe you get knocked out in a fight, or like that becomes the identity that they have. But your identity is not cramping up in the 1500 meter. Your identity is like your smile, your process, the hard work you put in, and I respect that very much of you. And I mean, I remember when you first got on, guys were like, "Hey, you ever hear about like what happened with Jamie Track?" I'm like, "No, not really, man." And they're like, "Watch this," and I watched that video of you. And one thing that I pick out of that video, and we're gonna make sure that video is in the notes for people to watch, was that you're smiling, man. Like, I don't know, when they're interviewing you half an hour later, and you're giving respect to the young kid Warner, right?
Yeah.
that you had mentored, and it was just nice to see. And it's like, and then hearing your friends, your family, your father speak of your character. That's exactly why you're on this podcast, is for people to hear that, because I can't imagine what that must have felt like. So now, fast forward just a little bit, how does it go from the track world to the policing world? Like, at what point it had to be hard not to think like, hey, I'm going to go 4 more years in this.
Yeah.
Or was it easy? Because of the training, you're like, fuck, 4 more years of this training, forget this.
I knew I could do it, but you just take everything into account. Like, I had been with my wife for like 10 years at that point. She was working. And I built just a great network. And I was like, and you know, Damien was doing well, and I wasn't giving up, but I was like, what's next? What's next that I can be great at? So I wanted to coach. I wanted to teach. I went to teachers college, and I just loved teaching, educating, learning, and then, you know, trying to give it to other people. So I coached 2 years at the university, and you know, I had great friends who were police officers, and they always talked about, you know, what you're doing in the community, and they straight educated, you know, you're doing the other stuff that they didn't quite tell me about until I got out.
Yeah,
it was like
shit that's on the pamphlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking of the first call I went to see you on. You were like, and so I was like, I want to educate. I teaching. I love teachers. They're my mentors. They're the reason they step forward for me. Like, all my coaches were teachers, and I saw what they could do, and I wanted to do that. But I was like, how can I do that in a different setting? Because when you're a teacher, you're a little bit more filtered. You can't really say what you want to say. But police officers, I can be honest with that parent. That person, you know, that I'm dealing with on the road. I can be real, and I can say it any way that I want. You know, not any way, but like a little less filtered. Like, more emotion can come out. And so I was like, let me do policing. Like, I had friends who were police officers, and they were they were great human beings, and I was like, all right, let me do this. So I threw my hat in. And I'm gonna say it was the best thing for me. It was another way to impact my community, because I had coached, and you know, you hear different things about life, and I was like, how can I get to that kid? How can I communicate with their family? And policing was one way you can do that, because it's a whole different world. And we had great teachers out there, and I knew we had great police officers. So I was like, either way I'm educating. So I was like, I can learn from policing, because it's a lot I don't know, and then I can educate as well. Like, I'm hopeful. I got so much hope. Like, I believe, like, even when the worst, like you said, like when it's like really bad, I still have hope for the situation, for people. You know, you're not always that mistake. I mean, some people are always, but I'm like, I'm doing it for the next person, like making it better for the next person. So I said, policing's for me. And then, you know, I had a great coach officer. I met you. You had to train me for a little bit, and you were like pulling your hair out, like, oh man. But it was I was lucky. Like I always said, I was always lucky to surround myself with great mentors, and, you know, people who cared about not just the profession, but me. And I was able to put that back into policing.
That's awesome, man. I'm going to pause you right there. You want to fill up your scotch or grab a quick sip? I'm just going to read you an ad. I got to actually get the computer over here. So I can read this in. I'm shooting from my house today, which is a little bit different than usual. So Stephen Kidd, financial advisor. Does your financial advisor take the time to really listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized for you and your family? Will your financial advisor be there as your life situation change? When you work with Stephen Kidd, your local Edward Jones financial advisor, he focuses on what's important to you. You work together to use an established process to create a personalized financial strategy backed by the advice, tools, and resources to help you reach your goals. And you'll partner to help your strategy stay on track. Contact Stephen Kidd today at 519-734-8599. That's 519-734-8599. Edward Jones, member, Canadian Investor Protection Fund. So we're talking about policing and we're talking about Jamie coming on. So kind of funny you say about teaching. So teaching is not for everybody. So when Jamie starts with the police department, I am literally like months off of being on the TAC team. And when I came back to patrol, it was like a whole new world for me. It was actually a little bit overwhelming with I felt like a lot of the camaraderie had been gone, and a lot of the things that I thought, I was good at were no longer kind of a skill, right? Like it was a different world of policing. And I get partnered with your coach officer, who's Sweet Pea.
Yeah.
The guy, I was actually badgering him today. I want to have this guy on the podcast because I'm telling you, this guy resurrected my life, my career. I was so bummed out being off that team, and I come to a guy who's been working the road for 20 something years, who is the most positive, genuine person I've ever been around. And he says, he's my lifeline. And now he's like, hey, by the way, I'm coaching Jamie Adjetey Nelson now. You got no partner. I'm like, what the fuck, this guy? So now I got to ride around with just whoever, and it ends up working out for the best because I met, great people like Candice and Spinner and people who are now my lifelong friends. And now Sweet Pea says, Smitty, I'm going off for a week of midnights to go to wherever with his family. I think it's March break.
Yeah.
He's like, can you train Jamie? I'm like, oh man, I don't know. Like I'm not a paperwork guy, and you gotta know the paperwork of your coach officer. And so anyways, I'm like, all right, Jamie, it seems like a real nice guy. I'm meeting up with you guys for coffee constantly, right? You jump in my car, and there's some funny stories, but one of my favorite is, and you realize how green we all are when you start in the police department, and like how you don't know the shit that's going on in the world. You and I go to a hotel.
I know where you're going with this.
You and I go to a hotel, and this guy's like, I've been robbed. And I remember it was so cold outside. We're standing outside. You hate the cold. I hate the cold. You hate it worse than me. We're standing outside. We're shivering. This guy's giving us this bullshit story. And I'm looking at you, and you're writing it all down. You were just like, yes, sir, yes, sir. Oh, and then they robbed you, and then they did this. And then I'm like, excuse me 1 second, Jamie. And you're like, yeah, go ahead, partner. And I like kind of close your notebook, and I look at the guy, and I'm like, you were getting a blowjob from a hooker, and she stole your wallet, didn't she? And now she's in that room. He's like, yes.
Yeah.
And I remember you looking at me like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. I might have thrown a couple expletives in there too, right? We go knock on the door, give the guy's wallet back, get out of here type of thing. We get in the car, and you're like, what just happened? It was just a hilarious thing, but it was 7 days of coaching, and it was a different world trying to see it through your eyes, trying to relay the information, try to process with two different things. So I can appreciate for sure. And you were actually the last person I ever coached. And that's where I realized it is really not for everybody, this teaching thing, this mentoring thing. And I'm so glad that you were able to learn and from some of the best. So take me through this a little bit, being a Black guy. So your mom is Jamaican, right? Your dad is from Ghana?
Yeah.
So your mom makes the meanest hot sauce too. And a huge fan of my comedy.
Oh man, she still talks about that. And I brought you some hot sauce.
You brought me some hot sauce?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That is he's like, my mom says put one drop in. Put one drop in, and she's right, because I put 2 drops in, and I'm like dying. But maybe the racial tension wasn't at the forefront as much as it is now, but being a young Black man at the time, were you intimidated coming into that? Because I remember you telling me stories about even moving here from Toronto, and you're the only Black guy, Black kid at the time in your school, and now you're coming into the police department. I mean, you can count on one hand, especially at that time, how many Black officers we had. What did that feel like?
You have, I'm totally new to policing, and you have some biases, right? Because you just don't know. And I was quiet, and I always, from a young age, I just went into a scenario, and I just sat back and I looked around, and you start breaking down those walls about police officers, especially in our service. So it was actually a positive experience for me, because that, people taking care of you, and I'm like, oh, you're like this. And, people saw color, right? You make the jokes, but at the end of the day, everyone was about making sure I was safe. And, once I started feeling like that, you start getting that family feeling. And, being with Sweet Pea, he's a great human being and a great officer. And I started looking at police officers as people, because like everyone, I used to hold police officers on a pedestal and thought they were different than us, but we're humans too. And once I started seeing the humanness in police officers, we don't hold ourselves above people. People hold us above and think that we think we're better than them. But no, we go through the same struggles with family. Our mental health's also struggling as well. And I started humanizing the job and seeing that, and I had a great experience there. There was the microaggressions and those things there. Some stuff you kind of ate down, but nothing ever where I felt like I wasn't welcome. And I think Windsor's just a unique area. There's a system and it's different and there's changes, but in patrol, it was about taking care of each other, and just the different personalities. It's about being good character, being a good person. Like, the goal was to take care of each other and the community. And when I started seeing that, it really wasn't much about, no one ever came about me like being the black officer. I felt I brought something in some situations where, I benefited a call, and I started seeing that. And I was like, we need more of that. So, that's where I advocate now. Like, we need to be more diverse because it helps. We could be in situations and someone's just more comfortable than me. Like, the areas we deal in Glengarry, more often people look like me and I'm able to connect. So from a policing standpoint, they were good to me and they valued what I had. And being the person I was able to step in if I needed to, just to, address the situation. Like I said, I had great mentors. I had you that 1 week, you might have not thought you didn't do a great job, but you taught me so much awareness, how to approach people, how to talk to people. And, it wasn't always on paper how to write a report. I remember I was a slow writer. You were like, yo, move over, I got this. But you knew how to talk to people. And that's what it is. So, it was a positive experience for me on the road. And, there's changes that need to happen, but I've never felt like I was an officer where I needed to bleed blue. They let me be the individual I was.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there's a lot of young cops or new cops or aspiring cops that listen to this podcast. And I think I remember one thing that I taught you. If there's one thing I could take away that I hope you took away from that training, is we gave somebody a massive break. Remember the guy in the parking garage?
Oh, yes.
So we won't get into the details of it, but I made a decision, and I explained it to you, to give this guy a massive break. And it meant stepping in the gray just a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think that is better for humanity and for that man and for his family. And, I remember seeing the car seat in his back.
Yeah.
You don't know what somebody's going through. And if there's any officer or listening here, and say it now with a little bit of the frustrations as a business owner and seeing some bylaw tickets getting handed out, and it's like, discretion is your greatest power.
Yes.
You have the ability to really destroy people's lives. And that should not be your intent as a police officer. Your intent should be to better the world. And if you use that discretion to better the world, doesn't mean giving everybody breaks. It means doing what you can and when you can to make the world better. And so I hope that's the one thing that you take away. And then when we come into for a white guy, the racism, I feel like you're not born racist, right? And you're not, and I see with our kids out there right now playing, they don't care. They could care less. They didn't even introduce themselves. They're just loving life. Well, I guarantee they are right now. And they've never met each other. And so and then playing Aikido football, and it was very, mixed races in that locker room, primarily black, especially in my position, it was me and all black guys. But then when I get in the police department, this is where I kind of see the systemic problem in the racism is, when you're going into neighborhoods like Glengarry all the time, and you're constantly, I'm battling with black men constantly. You start to see the skin as the uniform, and they start to see my uniform as my skin. And that's where I feel like that's the hardest part to explain to anybody who's never been there. And it's almost like the only people that can understand are each other in a way. Like, not, I'm talking like the cops and the black people, or the whatever that community might be, where it's like you walk into somewhere and you're hated. The difference being, I chose to be a police officer. You didn't choose the color of your skin. Can you speak to that at all? Like, how does the black community feel about that, or anything that might just enlighten somebody on the difficulties of being a police officer, or even more so, like maybe your experience? Because I know when the Floyd thing happened, you're the first person I called, and to be like, hey man, how are you holding up? Because this must be a very weird situation for you, because it felt like people they wanted the cops to choose, and they wanted the people to choose this side or this side, which is not what this world needs.
Yes.
It's a long-winded question. Go wherever this discussion goes, man.
I will say when I got on the job, and I put on the uniform, I approach police officers differently, but everyone's experience is different. And I remember putting on the uniform, and I would see black people in the community, and I'd be like, hey, and I wasn't getting the, hey, there's not many of us here that's saying no, like, hey, how you doing? It was like, they saw my uniform. And I was like, okay, I see that. And it hurt at first because I'm like, I'm not the uniform, I'm a person in that uniform. And, when the George Floyd issue happened, like that was great they reached out to me, because I was struggling, because a lot of people were looking for me to choose sides. And RJ Franklin said it best, it's not about sides, it's about right and wrong. And I was fine speaking up, and I'm like, that was wrong. That situation, like, you taught me discretion, and how to handle the situation. And my community was looking for me to say something, and I felt some police officers were looking for me to defend the badge, but I was like, that's not what we came here for. What happened there wasn't what we got on the job for. When someone's wrong, we're held accountable. That's one of our values, accountability, right? And I felt in that situation, and it's different over there. The States is a different beast. What he did, that was evil. I was seeing evil, and that's not what I saw every day at work. And for me, I had to let the police officers know at work. I was like, that's not who you are. There's an outrage right now in the rest of the world, and that's not who you are. I've been judged my entire life on the color of my skin. I've gone in certain areas, and people have felt uncomfortable because they're judging me on that. So when people were judging me on my uniform, it didn't hurt me as much. I was like, okay, we'll get through it. But I saw my fellow officers hurting because the community outrage was like, you're all like that. You're all like that. And I said, we're not. You know that. You're not like that. And, in the Black community, I would say to the young kids, I was like, you're not like that. Those are your values. So don't get caught up in you're all. Anything that's 100%, it can't be. It's you got to look at it.
Well, speaking absolutes, man. It's a damn thing I've learned.
Yeah, and so I was on both sides, and I was in the middle, and conversations were being had. People in the Black community looking for me to explain, how does police officers feel? And I was like, police officers, that is evil, but they're focused on you guys saying they're evil, and we were missing the whole point of it. We're trying to be allies. We're trying to work together. We're both trying to make our community better. And it was sad that it took something like that for conversations to be had. A life had to be lost. And then becoming defensive. like we needed to talk, and I knew it was going to take time. And being an officer in there, a black officer, I had to step up again. I had to have lots of conversations. I had to defend, you know, parts of the Black Lives Matter movement, and I also had to defend police officers as well, because I was in both worlds, and not all of everything is good. Not all of every movement is what I believe. Not all in how people handle some parts of policing, I believe. It's a hybrid, right? At the end of the day, we're looking for unity, allies, equity, and those issues, and it needs to happen in the police service. But we also need the help of our community. So why divide? It's time to come together. So I'm trying to bridge that gap, and it's a tough responsibility. But I became a police officer for that reason.
Yeah.
All cops are not bad people. I grew up and I had great experience with police officers. They were my coaches, my mentors. There's some people who I didn't even know were police officers as my coaches. And I was like, you were a cop? They were just a good person looking to do good in the community. So I wanted to highlight that and let people know that.
Man, that's an amazing outlook on it. And for sure, something that I think people don't really think about is so far beyond that. And I think you hit on it, but I think it needs to start in the community, actually, because I mean, the stats are the stats. That, you know, I mean, the states, it gets very hard to separate what happens here and what happens there, but there's still an alarming stat when it comes to, you know, Black men and use of force. And I don't think, like, you know, I'm a guy who did thousands and thousands of use of force reports, and on many Black people. I have no idea what the stat is, but the truth of the matter is, when we hit a door and there's, you know, 6, you know, Somalians or Jamaicans or whatever, it doesn't matter, 6 Black-skinned individuals inside that were dealing drugs and guns. I think the bigger problem is how come so many are being driven into this life, right? And that's when we need the community. Like, when it gets to us, when it gets to me hitting the door, the law is being broken, people's lives are in danger. We have to do what we have to do. And it's terrible to say this, but I think being out of the game, I can. It's like, it's almost just too late. I'm not going to change that, you know, 22-year-old Black man's life at this point by having a conversation. What I need to do is my job, which is, you know, might require me knocking him down and putting him in handcuffs, you know, hopefully not, but yes. And that's the end of my, you know, and then it's on to the next one. I don't think people realize that, like, I'm not able, and you're even not able, you know, even in community services, to spend days upon days trying to speak to this young man to fix it. It's like, you know, arrest, send him to the courts, on to the next case. And it's just very sad. And I think now, though, you in your position with community services, and I know Eddie Armstrong was there before. Eddie, if you guys don't know him, the first Black staff sergeant ever, the first Black man to be on ESU. He's just a class act too. And you guys and Neil, you guys are now able to, like, we're recruiting.
Yes.
Like, we're actively recruiting. So maybe, I mean, I don't want to put you in trouble. Maybe you can put your police hat on. If somebody is, you know, a minority, and I don't want to say, how do you say this right? If you're a minority, a female, you know, anybody who feels like you're not represented properly in the police service, what can they do? What are the steps they should take to becoming a police officer? And that's what we need. We need more guys like you who wear the uniform with pride, and, you know, somebody that kids are looking up to and say, like, man, I want to be like that guy.
Yes.
Right? What do you recommend from there?
You got to inform yourself. You got to get in touch with the community service branch, our recruiting. And, you know, Neil McEachran is doing a great job out in the community, but we need the applications. You know, sometimes people believe that it's not hopeful and they're not putting those applications in. You know, they think, you know what, I'm not going to get it anyways. No, we're there to mentor you. We're there to talk to you. You know, you need to reach out to the police service. You know, go on the website, get our email, and say, you know, I want to become a police officer. How do I do that? And they'll send you the community service branch. If we can get my email on there, and, you know, we're going to direct you in the right way, and we're going to have those conversations with you on, you know, what we're about, what we're looking for. Our service is preaching diversity. That's great. Now we need those applications to put the ball in their corner to do some action. You want diversity? Here's 100 diverse applications. You know, you got to put it in the Windsor Police's responsibility to, you know, hire these people, to vet them. But I find sometimes the community believes it's not hopeful. It is hopeful, but we need you to believe that change is happening, right? I'm there because I believe change is happening. And if I don't have the people putting just an effort forward to be a part of the change, it's not going to happen. You know, nothing's hopeful until you try, right? As soon as you try, things can happen.
This is coming from a guy who wasn't hopeful to make the Olympics, right? And then you came within one cramped hamstring. Like, you're the guy to give that and say, like, hey, listen, if you're a young black man, listen to this. Hey, Rob, I know you listen to this, man. He's one of the guys I'm working with. I know, like, you have the opportunity. Take it, man. Seize it. And so now, one last question before we wrap it up. Father to father. So our sons are out there. We're going to stay on this racism thing. And I love to ask parenting questions to people that's coming here. So our kids play together, whatever. Later on, maybe my kids ask, why is that man's hair different? What do you think we do to tackle that? This is where it starts, right? Is with our children. How do I tackle that as a father? What do you think? Got any advice on that one?
You're doing it already. You're making them inclusive. You're surrounding them with the world that they're living in. Like, you looked at me as a police officer, as a friend, and you brought me into your home, and you're allowing them to experience, like, he looks different. Why is he different? And then you can talk about it. His family's from here, his background is here. And, as they get older, they ask more questions. I always say, feel free to call me up. You got to use the resources around you, the people around you. And you do that, and they become more inclusive, and they ask questions. Everyone's always afraid to ask a question. No, that's how we learn. We ask questions, and you get answers. It might not be the answer you want, but you're going to learn something from it. And as a father, your kid comes to you with something. If you don't know the answer, what do? You go out and get it. You don't just say, no, I'm not going to educate you. Like, no, and it puts it on the parent, and that helps the parent learn too. Don't be afraid to learn about whatever it is. Especially if you can, it's better to go to a group of people, instead of going to the internet, because we all know how social media works.
Right.
You can't find the truth there anymore because everyone has their theory, but you have, like, Amherstburg, you have a diverse community. You have
it is crazy how this little community has such a it's so diverse.
It's crazy. When I came here, I was like, Amherstburg, and I've learned so much about the history of Black people in Canada. It started here in Amherstburg, right? And I think you're in a perfect place. You're always willing to learn, and what you do as a mentor, as a coach, it's learning. So you bring that to your kids. You probably don't even know you did it. And you did it for me when you're a coach officer. You're like, this is not for me, but look what you blossomed into. It's realizing that, and your kids are seeing that, and you're just inclusive.
I think where we go wrong with parenting a lot is almost like hiding from, like, Jamie is a black man, Mr. Jamie. If they ask, Mr. Jamie is a black man, like, why? It's okay to say that.
Yes. And
celebrate somebody said that to me in a podcast a little while ago. A guy from Houston, black guy from Houston. He's like, man, it's cool that you say, hey, Byron, that guy I know, a big black guy, played football, remember him? He's like, yeah, that's okay for you to say, man. Mm-hmm. But, like, it's not okay to, like, ignore it, and it's not okay not to celebrate. Like, I'm Italian, I'm like, I'm a short white guy, man. Let's just say what it is. Like, we don't need to hide from that. And I think the more normal we make that, the better. I was talking in a high school class last week. I know you're in there a lot. And I said, one of the things I said to these kids is, like, this generation, it gets ripped on a lot, but they have the opportunity, our kids, to make a difference. Because it is nothing to these kids that you're black, you're white, you're Chinese, you're this, you're that, you're gay, you're
identifying as such. Like this generation is way ahead of us in a lot of ways, but make sure that communication doesn't happen all through the social media, the computers, and that's what we got to defend our kids from, I think, man. So, man, just unbelievable to have you. I read something that in your bio that you sent me just as prep from here was like about your dad said about making your son's life better than the life he made for you, and that stuck with me. I think that's what you're doing for policing. I think that's what you're doing for your son. So, what's your mission there, and how's the best way? What's the best thing you're going to do? The number one thing you're trying to do in this new role in community services, or just as a dad or a leader in general.
Like my dad said, he said, I came to this country to make a better life for you, and you should, be at a better position because of what I've done for you. So in my community service and as a father, it's being an example, and it's providing opportunity. And that's what I want to do. I want an opportunity and a safe space. So in community service, a lot of the times we go and we give presentations. When I give a presentation, I want to learn from you as well. I'm not always going to hit everything you want. So I want to open that communication. It's safe for you to say whatever you want, because I can learn from you and you can learn from me. I never want it to stop there. And I want to bring that information back to my kids so they can learn, right? And I can talk about, I learned this today. It just doesn't stop at you to take information and keep it for yourself and hold on it. You got to share it. So I want to share. I want to educate people on their rights, because if they know their rights when they have that occurrence with a police officer, we're speaking the same language, right? We're meeting somewhere. Too many times ignorance can get all of us in trouble. So I want to also bring that back to the service. They're part of our community as well. So I'm in community service. It's not just about the outside community, it's about our community inside. And I want to educate there. So education. My dad always said education. I came here for you to get educated. So I want to educate others as well.
You must be proud, because you're doing a great job, man. Super proud of you. You're always smiling. The only time I've not seen you smile, I got it. So
tell the story. My mom loves it.
So Jamie's a young cop. He's been with me for the second day. He's got a good trust in me, and he just had a baby. So Bennett, who's out there right now, he's got a brand new baby, and he's tired. Jamie's tired, man. Like, you have no idea what it's like to work midnights, having a baby, a wife at home. I think she was back to work already because she's working in the States. And I'm like, hey, Jamie, you're crashed out, man. Just take a minute. I'm going to stay awake. It's not uncommon for a cop to take a nap, man. It's normal, right? Take a nap. The new guy doesn't want to do it. He's like, all right, man, I'm going to do this. So I wait till he dozes off. And then I put my phone in front of him so I can videotape. And I flipped on the cruiser lights, and I jump out of the car, and I'm like, he's running. Jamie jumps up. Like, it was locked in your seatbelt, and you were so angry with me. And then, of course, the new guy, man, we gotta do the new guy. And the next day, of course, we got it on the big screen in the light-up room. Everybody saw it, man. And that's, you know what? They say this isn't hazing, and it really wasn't hazing. But man, I think it's like that's where you see the characters. How can we make fun of each other, and how can you still handle it? And then the day after we hit up St. Patrick's Day in Detroit. That's what prompted this whole conversation today. Was I saw some great pictures of me and you having a blast in Detroit, and it's just been a pleasure knowing you. Super proud of you, and you're gonna keep making a difference, man. So if people do want to get a hold of you, I wouldn't, being a police officer, I wouldn't give out your personal information. But if you want to give out some professional information on how they can get you at community services.
Yeah, you can get a hold of me through my email. It's going to be Adjetey Nelson at windsorpolice.ca. So I'll spell that for you.
Yeah, we'll get it in there. We'll get it in the show notes. Don't worry about it.
And just contact me. Let me know whether you want to be a police officer or you have questions. I'm going to direct you to the best people I can, and that's what it's about. So it's Adjetey Nelson at windsorpolice.ca. And
you guys are hiring.
We are hiring right now. We've opened our hiring. It's a great time to be a police officer. Be the change you want to see in this world, people. All right. Don't criticize it. Be a part of it. So, get at me.
Awesome, man. Now speaking of making it better for the world, Jamie and I are going to go outside. We're going to barbecue. We're going to have some fun with our wives, watch the kids run around a little bit more and have some fun. I'm just going to read in this last little ad. Thank you, Jamie, for coming on here. And if anybody, if in doubt and you want me to put you in touch with Jamie, reach out to me and I will vet that and make sure that communication happens. So this and every episode is brought to you by Murray Insurance. They are Murray Insurance Financial in Kingsville, Ontario. They are Southwestern Ontario's #1 ranked Desjardins insurance agency by their clients and owned by the Garage Gym Kingsville OGs, Ian and Kara Murray. Ian and Kara's team pride themselves on many of the high standards that the Garage Gym has come to expect. They're experts in their industry with a combined over 100 years of experience. They're the best in customer service in the industry. They have claims concierge service, which is exclusive to their clients. And they focus on community, employing local team members, investing back in the Essex County community on a continual basis. They are a one-stop shop for everything to protect you, your family, and your assets with the best policies in the industry. Oh, and they have incredible rates when you combine your home auto insurance and all other policies together. Give them a call today or send them a text at 519-733-2331. That's 519-733-2331 or check them out online. We're going to call that one over and out. Cheers to you, man. Stay safe, stay strong.
Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.